Today, I will be presenting on Yoshitomo Nara. First, I would like to give some background on the artist. Nara was born in Hirosaki, Japan in 1959, which is a small rural town in northern Japan. He was one of 3 sons to working parents and often had to fill his free time as a child with comics and time in nature. His interest in art can be traced back to high school, where he took a nude sketching class, where he quotes, "I found my originality there." From there, Nara moved on to a bigger city, Nagoya, Japan, where he attended Aichi Prefectural University of Fine Arts and Music and earned his Bachelor of Fine Arts and his Master of Fine Arts by 1987. He then moved to Dusseldorf, Germany in 1988, where he continued to study at the German State Academy of Arts, graduating in 1993. He stayed in Germany for some time after graduating to teach art to others and work on art in a studio he set up in Cologne. Even after university, he wasn't sure he truly wanted to be an artist. He says he went to art school simply because he could draw, but while teaching art, he would tell his students how artists quote-unquote should be, and it then occurred to him that one could actually draw as a way of finding oneself instead. This realization is what cemented Nara to the profession of an artist. In 2000, Nara moved back to Japan and set up a studio in Tokyo, and he still resides in Japan to this day. Nara works in a multitude of different mediums, such as painting, drawing, printmaking, installation, sculpture, and ceramics. His work can be found displayed in small galleries and exhibitions, to large museums such as the MoMA, to even commercial toys. His works have bold lines, flat pastel colors, and ultimately lack 3-dimensionality, giving them a cartoonish type style reminiscent of manga and anime. His work is easily recognizable, not only because of his distinct cartoonish style, but also the subject matter of his work is usually either animals or, more notably, wide-eyed, seemingly innocent and sweet young children that have dark and sinister elements attached to them, like knives or cigarettes. His work also sometimes has Japanese, English, or German texts incorporated within them. Nara's big break in the art world was in the late 90s when he worked with a Japanese cult novelist, Banana Yoshimoto, on a book project called Argentine Hag. His big break also comes from when he created album covers for Japanese punk band Star Club and Japanese girl band Shonen Knife. His work was now exposed to a much broader audience of people and became popular fast. It is important to note that the album covers were part of his early work and big break because music has a huge influence on Nara's work. Growing up in a small town, there were no art museums, so he notes that a lot of his exposure to art came from album covers. He also grew up with a fascination and love for 60s and 70s punk and classic rock, and in his studio he has shelves of many albums from this era. He plays music as he works, and often the lyrics and melodies of the music influence his pieces, such as these pieces where rock and punk influences are clearly shown. The piece on the right even having lyrics from a 1970s rock song by Neil Young. In a clip from a documentary about Nara in 2009, it shows Nara blasting music in the background as he works in his studio in Tokyo. In the early 2000s, Nara entered a group of Japanese artists called the Super Flat Group. This group of artists gained inspiration for drawings from Japan's long tradition of flat art, such as ukiyo-e woodblock prints from the Edo period of Japan, and also manga, which has deep roots in Japanese culture. The name super flat also refers to the flat shallowness of consumer culture in Japan. The superflat movement mixes traditional Japanese styles while diving into hyper-marketed anime and manga culture. Along with Nara's work, the superflat artists in general also display flat, bold works that lack three-dimensionality. You can see Nara's influence from traditional Japanese art and ukiyo-e woodblock art in his series In the Floating World, where he places his cartoon-like characters in the settings of famous Japanese artist Hokusai's ukiyo-e series, 36 Views of Mount Fuji. His versions take from the historical pieces and make it contemporary, with a young girl sledding down Mount Fuji, as seen here, or a character made of the Great Wave flaunting a knife, as seen here. While most people make the mistake of only attributing his work to manga and anime that he grew up reading and watching, Nara has also said that the faces are inspired by traditional Japanese otafuku and okame theatrical masks, as seen here. Nara is most known for his artworks of young, sweet, and sinister children. They are seemingly innocent, but a darker side to his work is shown by these children cursing, holding weapons and crucifixes, or even put into straitjackets. You can see the angst and emotional depth of the art portrayed through all of this. When asked if these pieces are aggressive in nature, depicting evil children as perpetrators of violence, Nara has said that he sees the children among other, bigger, bad people all around them, who are holding bigger knives. Also, when asked why most of his pieces are of girls, he said that he views the children in his art, as well as children in general, as more genderless, and that the way he draws them is simply what pops into his mind. He also has said that he views some of these characters as self-portraits. Growing up as a rebellious teen and artist who has strong views, he uses his work to portray his messages, such as these two pieces of work that say no nukes and no war. Nara is known to be against these things, even putting them as his bio on Instagram. He could be referring to war and mass consumerism sometimes as the bigger bad people these children are defending themselves against. In 2011, a big earthquake hit Japan that affected a large area and hit very close to Nara's hometown. After that earthquake, he became depressed and stopped working for a period of time. Following that earthquake and then the death of his father was a shift in Nara's work to a more contemplative mood. In 2017, he put on a show at the Pace Gallery in New York called Thinker. The pieces in this show have deeper meanings than his older work, with more spiritual and introspective themes. He called the show Thinker because he admits that he used to be very unthinking in the past, eating when hungry and not thinking about what he was eating. The same goes for his art. He would have an image he wanted to create and just create it and finish it quickly. Now he takes his time and works slowly, building up layers until he finds the best way to make his art. This is his creative process now. He has a conversation with the image he creates and thinks for himself and gets to know himself through his art. He uses Midnight Truth, the painting on the left, as an example of this, saying that colored paintings have layers and are meant to be instruments for the audience to communicate with themselves, that these paintings he does are not just an image of a girl, but layers that lead to introspection. Also, in the Thinking show, he displayed a Miss Forest sculpture that takes on the shape of a tree. He calls the sculptures in the Miss Forest series forest spirits, taking from religious stories of his youth, of spirits that resided in the forest. He says that before his 30s and 40s, he didn't think about his relation with the environment and society, but as he grew older, his perspective widened, and he explored his relationship with himself and the world more. These sculptures are made out of bronze, as Nara starts to think about his mortality, wanting these sculptures to outlast him when he is gone. More currently, Nara's work was supposed to be shown in a solo exhibition called Yoshitomo Nara that was going to take place April 5th to August 20th, 2020, but has been postponed due to the coronavirus. The exhibition, titled with simply his name, was going to be a look at Nara's work spanning over 30 years. It was to feature albums he collected as a youth, many of his artworks, never before seen never before exhibited sketches and an installation replicating his studio. While most critiques I've read of Nara's work have been positive, some critics can't look past the cartoon-like images, saying they lack depth and are more for teen bopper magazines or children's museums rather than art museum pieces. Others acclaim his work for showing narratives or messages that remind us of our youth, embodied in just single images. His work overall is loved by many and has a high cost for people who want to attain it. In 2019, he broke his own record for highest selling piece of work when he sold this painting, Knife Behind Back, a painting of a girl with no knife shown but sinister with the title, for about $25 million. I personally love Yoshitomo Nara's work. This past summer in 2019, I was introduced to his work by a friend because she knew I liked both kawaii art but also darker works as well. I immediately fell in love with his work, even going as far as wanting to tattoo one of his pieces on my body, specifically the piece I showed in the last slide. Now that I've been able to learn more about Nara and his process, I have fallen even more in love with his work. I resonate with his rebellious nature in the art and the ideas that go beyond them. I also respect his newer works for being more contemplative, allowing for many different layers to view Nara's work. Overall, I appreciate his dedication to his work and his expression of self. He has said that he uses art as a way of expressing and finding himself, and that he would create the same things whether anyone were to see them. And I think that is very admirable.